Welcome back to Story Mode. We head back to 1991. This would have to be the most important chapter in my life. 2 weeks before I was 18 years old, I opened up my own video game shop. Welcome to 1991, a time where the music changed, yet it was still awesome. The 80s will always be my favourite for music, but the 90s did bring something different.
That's the way it's gonna be, little darling. When I think about you, I touch myself.
Yep, there were so many singers and groups I loved in the 90s. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Roxette, and we can't forget Bart Simpson.
Do the Bartman.
Move it on the double, cause if you don't, you're in deep, deep trouble.
You Could Be Mine by Guns N' Roses should have been my favourite one, but I was a massive Nirvana fan. 1991 didn't disappoint with movies either, and A-grade movie stars were everywhere. Val Kilmer, Steve Martin, Jean-Claude Van Damme, all the Star Trek cast were back for The Undiscovered Country, Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon in Thelma and Louise, Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves in Point Blank, then Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. An honourable mention will go to Cape Fear with Robert De Niro. What a movie.
One more step for you. You know the routine.
But let's face it, the best movie of 1991 is Terminator 2: Judgment Day. And no, not just because it's got an afterburner in there. So it's about mid-1991 and I've recently stopped importing games with my good friend Bruno because he's opened up his own business with a business partner called High Tech Game Centre. I still used to buy games from Hong Kong just for myself, but because I wasn't buying them in quantities, I didn't get the price I wanted. So one day after work I was waiting for the bus and my grandfather happened to drive by, saw me and picked me up. As we were travelling home to my mum's house, I was talking to him about the possibility of opening up a video game shop. I had a bit of experience from Myer, like invoicing and profit margins and things like that, but keep in mind I was only 17 and a half around that age. And I said I'd possibly like to do it within a year. His response was, when you leave Myer, come and talk to me and we'll set you up a shop. I couldn't believe it. Is it that easy? Would he really invest that much money, and how much money is that going to be? So about a week goes by and I'm at work Saturday night doing stock take. And it was going to at least go to 11 o'clock at night. And I'm getting discontent working at the computer department knowing that I want to open up my own video game shop. So I used to wear a little badge here that said Joel Hopkins Myer. I just removed that badge, walked up to my boss Joanna and said I'm done. I basically just walked away, didn't give any notice, and just had enough. I think that was the moment that I got pushed over the edge because I was working there from 7 a.m. right up until 9 o'clock at that time, and I would have had to go to 11 o'clock. You wouldn't get away with that these days. I walked down the street and caught a tram, also known as a cable car, into the heart of Melbourne City, and I just let my hair down. I went to cafes and nightclubs, and I even met a girl.
Don't I know you from somewhere?
So the next day rolled around, I had a little bit of a hangover and I'm talking to my grandfather at lunch about the video game shop and I want to start it up and can he help me and how much is it going to cost, and he just wanted to know all the facts and figures that would a video game shop survive in 1991 considering we're kind of in a recession or at least getting out of one at that stage. And I told him all the facts and figures and the 3 companies I was buying from, and they were really looking after me. But I had a secret weapon. I had my good friend Simon Lee. Simon, originally from Malaysia, could speak very good Cantonese or Mandarin and would talk to the companies and even get bigger companies to look after me. He loved the enthusiasm, the idea and the plan, and he said, give me a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I got a call from the girl I met at the nightclub. Her name was Kylie, and within 3 weeks, I had a steady girlfriend, a business, and a driver's license. While we were looking for a shop front, my grandfather wanted me to operate the business from his house, from my grandparents' house. Let's go there now.
We're sending you back to the future.
Well, we're now in West Preston and behind me is my grandparents' house. I spent most of my video game life in this house and it brings back so many memories. I remember standing out here on this little plantation and holding my controller and running my radio control car up and down the street. It was so much fun. But inside's where all the action happened, and that was video games. Let's take a look in there now. All right, so I'm currently in the house and you'd walk down this little hallway here and you're into the lounge room. It's a very modest house. It's very, very small. And to the right of me is this lounge room. And in this lounge room, so many memories right here with the Commodore 64 and the Mega Drive and everything. It was an older TV. It was a bit bigger than this. And these two speakers on each side, I used to blast out music from the Mega Drive Amiga. So let's begin the story. Now, before I sold video games in a proper shop, I actually sold them at the back of my grandparents' house. You'll have to excuse the mess. My uncle's a scrap metal merchant. It didn't always look like this. This is just here for storage. At the very back of the house was this office. This is where I used to operate my video game importing business from. There would have been hundreds of customers that came through this green door. I had to get a shop, and I found one only 5 minutes away. So here we are, we're in my first shop. I only had this shop for around 6 months. And as you can see, it's a fairly busy street. It didn't last long because the shop just wasn't big enough. And yeah, 6 months later, I moved to the next shop, which is just around the corner. Again, about 5 minutes from my grandmother, probably both of them equal distance. So here we are, 115 Miller Street, West Preston, and there's a lot of traffic actually, and it was like that even back in 1991, 92. Well, I actually got the shop in 92, the other shop was in 91, and it's bringing back a flood of memories, heaps of memories. Let's head back to the home and talk about them. It was so good to visit my grandparents' house and the two shops and probably re-jog some of my memories. So we'll start with my grandparents' house. That office out the back, I have so many memories. It's full of boxes now, so I can't really get in to show you, but I remember meeting some good friends who I'm still friends today. One of them being Robert. I remember him coming in as a little boy. Now, he wasn't that little. He would have been about 11 or 12. I guess when you're 17 and someone's 12, they're going to look like a little boy. And Robert and I end up being really, really good friends, and we're still great friends today.
There's always some sort of excitement going on in Joel's life.
The other good friend and regular customer was Simon Lee. Simon helped me forge relationships in Hong Kong with heaps of video game distributors, such as Eternal Peace. I don't know if anyone knows that name. They were a massive company for me. They would send me so many games for such a cheap price. And Simon would also ring them and speak to me in Cantonese. It was so awesome. In fact, I started to learn Cantonese just to be able to talk to him. From memory, it was Mkoi. I think that means hello, how are you? I just can't remember all the words now, but I remember calling and go, Mkoi, could I speak to Hinny? That was one of the people I was dealing with. Anyway, I digress. Here's my good friend Simon.
Yo, what's happening around here, man? To be fair, guys, you're filming it. Oh, still got it, baby. Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
And then we got the first shop in Gilbert Road, West Preston. And it's amazing that it feels like I was there for ages, but I was only there for about 5 or 6 months. And this was the dawn of the Sega Mega Drive. You have to understand, the Sega Mega Drive just come out to Australia, and I was selling the unit in my shop for at least $100 cheaper. I think the recommended was about $299. Well, I was selling it for about $200 and with a free game. And you can imagine how many I sold. I remember opening the shop doors on the first week. I had a Sonic the Hedgehog poster up on the shop window. It took a couple of weeks for people to recognize that there was a shop open in Preston, and I would advertise in the local paper, one called the Trading Post, and even the Age. Like the Age newspaper was pretty big. Then the shipment of Super Famicom consoles come out, and I couldn't believe how many of those I sold. Problem was, people didn't know Super Famicom was the same as Super Nintendo. The other thing I'd sell with the console is a thing called a honeybee converter. This would allow them to play Japanese games as long as they had one PAL game. Then I started to sell PC Engine. This is the console I didn't have much faith in, yet I started importing them and the games, and you couldn't believe the little market I had. I also imported the Super Graphics. Yep, things were going amazing. They were going so well that we outgrew that shop. I couldn't even hold enough stock in there, let alone the games. I would roughly have about 100 to 150 games, different games at one time. So the 6-month lease was almost up on the first shop. My grandfather found another shop, 115 Miller Street in West Preston. We moved in an instant. It was bigger, it had a storage room out the back, and it had 2 phone lines, one for fax and one for calling. As we were moving the stock from one shop to another, you cannot believe how hard it was to still deal with customers, and believe me, there were hundreds of them coming to buy consoles and video games and everything. Even getting their console modded, because we would do mods on Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. Within 2 days we got all the stock moved over. We set up the shelves, it was going great. There was one thing missing, a name for the shop. So I'll come up with the name Australian Vision Games. Now by this stage it's around mid-1992 and things were flying. This shop was open for around 2 weeks and money was just pouring in. It was insane. I was laughing all the way to the bank. The customers were happy, my grandfather was happy, I was happy, everyone was happy. Until one day I rocked up to the shop at 6 in the morning and saw it was full of steel shutters. Yep, the shop was broken into and I lost all stock. How was I ever going to recover from this?